Do you know what I loved in this movie as well was the evil drunk Santa and how he kept coming back into it.
I liked him.
He was hilarious.
I thought he was
when he's
brilliant.
like pulling his trousers off, you see this crap.
But you know what I was quite shocked about was when he's like provoking him into attacking him.
Yeah.
He starts like accusing him of being
Cripple.
a pedo.
No,
he starts accusing him of being a pedo.
Yeah, he's like, do you like kids? You cripple? And I was like,
Yeah, he was saying, is there something dark behind this? Do you like the kids?
And I was like, this is a you.
Yeah, I remember watching it today and being like, I don't remember that last time. That's a bit.
Yeah, but he had to make him strike him with the cane, innit?
Even still.
But he didn't actually hit him.
This is the Filmy McFilm Film Show. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe.
Oi, oi. Who are you?
Phil.
Who am I?
Declan.
Who's that?
Sophie.
And today we're talking about Miracle on 34th Street, directed by Les Mayfield, starring Elizabeth Perkins, Dylan McDermott, and old Dickie Attenborough.
Dickie Attenborough.
And it tells the tale of a lawyer and a little girl who must prove that a man claiming to be Santa Claus is the real thing. Dun 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 dun. Sophie, how many times have you seen this movie?
Oh, too many to count. Do you want me to introduce myself?
You sure can.
I'm a special guest tonight.
Whoa. And you've been brought in, you're basically the resident expert tonight because you've seen this movie. In fact, she actually, when I said, because we watched the movie, we usually pick movies to review that we've seen before or we love. Eventually we'll run out, so we have to do shit movies and new movies. But usually, we always rewatch it anyway just before we're going to do it. And Sophie confidently said you didn't even need to watch it.
I've seen it far too many times.
Because you can quote it throughout.
So it's the 7th of December. I've got a glass of wine and I want to talk about Christmas movies.
Phil, you've never seen this before, had you?
Well, number one, Sophie, you have the honour of being our first ever special guest.
And there's been a lot of demand.
Yeah, there's been a lot of demand. We've
Actually, it has been. Harry Barnford.
Yeah, Harry Barnford.
Chomping at the bit.
Producer extraordinaire. But Sophie, you've got the title. And you've kind of skirted around the question many times as an answer. How many times have you seen this?
So, I reckon I've probably watched it probably 2 or 3 times every single Christmas. Since maybe like 1994 it came out, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So I was born in 1993. Pretty sure it's also one of my dad's favourites. I probably watched it about 3 times as a child in 1994.
That you can't even recall.
Yeah,
wow.
So 28 years of watching it 2 or 3 times? It's a
do you know
classic
what?
though, isn't it? You can't...
They say the best time to learn a language is when you're like 2 or 3, when you can't even remember. So it probably absorbed into your brain even better then.
Yeah, because I believe.
You do believe. Well, let's get to that. So I'd never actually seen this movie. I'd seen the original years and years ago, and I meant to watch it for this review. Rewatched the original as well, but I didn't have time. But I'd never seen the remake until you showed it to me last year. Mm-hmm. And it immediately went up there in one of my all-time favourite Christmas movies. And I especially love it because, among other things, it's got that feel of different decades seem to have... There's different eras of movies. Like the 90s had great action movies. The 80s had great horror movies and slasher movies. And I feel like the 90s also had a great run of Christmas movies. You know that feel where they all had that same sort of look? They always seem to have the same cast as well. I'm sure the stepdad in this is in like every 90s Christmas movie. He's always the potential stepdad or like stepdad lover. Sometimes he's a villainous one, but he's always in there.
Well, this is the first time that I've seen it, and then like he comes in, and like to be honest, I don't know who this guy is. But you know, like we were
talking as an actor.
I've seen him, but you know, we was talking about it when like we was talking about Batman, and then you got the guy at the start of it who comes in. He's like, "Do you know whose bank you're robbing?" And you're like, "This actor has been in so many things, but I don't know who he is."
So the guy you're talking about, I can't remember his name either to prove the point you're making. But just for the audience, he was the guy in Heat who Robert De Niro threatened over the phone call when he said there is a dead man at the end of this phone. And do you know what's so funny? I was thinking about this today, and I thought of that guy as well as an analogy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got that like 90s 90s look and feel to it. And also, one thing I noticed is I really like the lighting in the movie. And I actually read somewhere that they intentionally use a lighting technique where they basically had a backlight on every single character, which you usually wouldn't do because it's not a realistic light. Like, you generally, the main lighting setup is to create a what looks normal, like lifelike. And then obviously you have stylistic choices on top of that people use. But they had a backlight on every actor to create a glow behind them.
Well, it's because they get the catalogue house at the end, isn't it? So it's like the catalogue feel the whole way through.
Yeah,
And that's what they get at the end, is the... Spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't watched it, by the way. But the most wholesome moment of the whole movie is when they get the catalogue house right at the end. And that is... It's just a bunch of happiness wrapped up in a movie.
Now, I'm racing ahead here. But
sorry, am I going out?
No.
This is me being the honorary guest.
That's fine.
Jumping about all over the
because usually
place.
we just like get into it and then we start talking about the plot and stuff. But let's get into this now. What do you think he was the real Santa or not?
Is there any question? Of course he was.
See, that's interesting. I don't think he was the real Santa.
I just think he was just a genuinely jolly old man.
Old delusional man with dementia.
You know, the film starts, he's walking about, and then you got the little kid, and he's like, that's Santa. He's like, ask him, Grandad, ask him, Grandad. I just think he's just a nice man that was just going about his daily business. Over the course of this one day, he also stumbles upon the parade and finds the pisshead Santa, and he's like, no, this isn't on.
Do you know what?
Saying that, just before you move on from that as well, that little kid who plays the judge's grandson.
Oh, he's great.
He's great. And also, how good are all the child actors? All the child roles in this movie? Because usually, like, if even in big Hollywood movies, we were saying it last week about Home Alone, even in the biggest Hollywood movies, you generally never see a role filled by a bad actor, even for the minor little, just couple of lines, except for maybe the child roles, because it's so hard to find reliably good actors at that age. But all the kids in this were perfect.
I think with the kids, I bet you if you looked it up, I bet you it's like one of those things where they probably never showed them or never got them to rehearse and has a lot of their real reactions, and that's probably why it makes it look so genuine.
It's funny you say that, because remember the scene with the deaf girl?
Yes.
She was an actual deaf girl, and Richard Attenborough, old Dickers, he specifically said he didn't want to rehearse with her for her to know that he was going to sign language.
Oh my
to
gosh,
her.
I love that. That's made this movie even better.
And they filmed it with 2 cameras, so that they had her genuine reaction when he started sign language into her.
I love that bit.
How good is that?
But it's now this is gonna sound like a stupid point, but that's Matilda, isn't it?
Yeah, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm sure that's Matilda. Like
that was when that's.
And Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yeah, that's true. She's in Mrs. Doubtfire as well.
3 of the greatest kid movies of all time.
Well, how comes we didn't touch on her in our little child actor piece? Like, we talked about the one from Stuart Little, and we missed her out.
Did we really not?
Yeah.
Because last week, because we were doing Home Alone,
yeah,
and I was making the point that Macaulay Culkin's got to be one of the most fucking charismatic 7-year-olds you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And we were going through like who would stand up, who would be the best, and ranking them. But do you know what? That's a really good shout.
But she was just great, and then like she's not really done much ever since, has she? She's just.
Well, she retired.
Mara Wilson, is that her name, or have I made that up?
I think it is.
It's quite common for child actors to retire. It's actually more uncommon for them to continue to act into their adulthood. And I have a thing where I always feel like people that are good looking at that age end up most of the time being a bit weird looking as adults.
She's still beautiful, just for the record.
Is she?
Do you know Haley Joel Osment, the guy from The Sixth Sense?
Oh yeah, I know him.
And Pay It Forward and AI. He ended up. We said this last week, but he ended up looking fucking wacky looking. But he was the cutest little kid.
No, but the guy from Stuart Little is proper. You should see him now.
Oh my god, have you seen him?
He's like a tank.
No, really, have you seen him?
No, I don't think so.
He is like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's not something I Google often. It's the guy from Stuart Little.
No. Sometimes I do that. Like sometimes you come across actors and you're like, I wonder what they're doing now with their lives.
Yeah,
so I googled this and I was just like, fucking hell. He's had a transformation.
Or you'd be like, oh, that fat guy from Cheers.
Yeah,
like, what did he do after Cheers and stuff?
I believe that I kind of...
I believe.
Yeah, but
Very
look at the tagline of the film. Like, I just thought, like, watching the film from the first time that I saw it, I just thought, this guy's just like a general nice man going around New York. So...
Here's my thing. I definitely think, even though there's a couple of hints towards the end that he might be the real Santa, I definitely think he's not the real Santa. And I actually feel like that is, for me, that's the more life-affirming angle. The fact that he's not actually Santa.
Do you think...
Because it gets more into the whole speech towards the end, once it moves into the courtroom drama section of the movie. And the night before the final day of the trial, and the lawyer character is talking with Dickers about what they're going to do the next day, and he says to him that whole speech about, you know, the point of Christmas is that we believe in something that we know is not real to create a better idea of, in like children's mind and all our minds, and that's more in keeping with it if he's not Santa Claus, because when the whole city gets behind him, they know it's not real, but they're like, fuck it, we know it's just a delusional old guy who really believes he's Santa and he's crazy, but why would we, you know, let's all get behind it, and everyone buys into it. And that's what Christmas is. It's this illusion we all buy into, and kind of like, we don't pretend we think Santa's real as adults, but we all buy into the aspect of it, because really there's no logical reason to do Christmas every year.
Well, do you know what I think? Both of you two are not going to get any presents this year because none of you believe.
Let me put this as Sophie, as the nominated superfan. Has this sort of train of thought or theory ever crossed your mind before Declan's just brought it up, or did you just see it as it's the layer of he definitely is Santa Claus?
Yeah, I just enjoy the
And that's
movie. Like, I just enjoy it, and I just think it just is like a warm hug of a movie.
Yeah.
And whether or not, I suppose that's what it is about, isn't it? Because like, it's like one of those things as well. It's like, I've seen a lot of things recently about like, if when you have to come to tell your kid that Santa Claus is not real, like, it's not, well, he is real because the illusion of him is real, and Santa Claus is like more of like, not like a feeling, but, do you know, like it's a thing. And yes, mummy and daddy might be Santa Claus, but you then get to turn, and apparently like the way to do it to your kids is like to tell them that like now you get to help be Santa Claus for your younger siblings. And I just think that's really nice, and it's like, it is kind of what you were saying, is like, this is completely turned into like whether Santa Claus is real or not.
Yeah.
So hold on, let's go around and say, how did you find out Santa wasn't real, Phil?
I think I was about 16 by the time I was how did I find... I'll tell you exactly how I found out. I remember this vividly. So we went down to the tree and then got everything out. The what do you call that sock thing? The stocking.
The stocking.
And I just turned around and was like, we got that all out. And then later on, I think...
So what age are you, first of all?
I don't know, that's 4. I'm not gonna say 6.
Pretty
I'm not gonna say 10 or 11.
You're like poor little Susan.
But what happened was, and I was quite a clever little kid, I turned around and was like, when we got our presents later on from under the tree that our mum and dad gave, I was like, hang on, you and Santa use the same wrapping paper. And they were like, shit, we've been rumbled here.
That was clever.
Yeah, so we...
See, my parents were quite smart. They would have our presents already under the tree that were from them. And then Santa's presents would actually show up not wrapped on the morning,
Really?
just in a corner. And we'd be like, oh shit. And there'd be the milk and whiskey gone and cookies.
Yeah, my mum would get other people to write the labels so we couldn't recognise their
Really?
handwriting.
See?
We come from a very Christmas heavy family.
So you're definitely, you and Anna are definitely smarter than me, Grace and Shane, because there was not that sort of level.
But I know that my mum and dad were like really unorganised, because I always used to remember like being a little kid. You could never sleep, and then you'd be like running about, and it'd be like 2 a.m. we used to hear like loads of like crashing downstairs, and now I later realised that it was like sellotape, like they're just wrapping it like they're just so unorganised.
That was Santa coming through the
yeah,
fireplace.
Yeah, they're so unorganised.
I remember completely grilling my mum in the car and just being like, "Tell me the truth, like, is he real or not?" But she eventually snapped.
But you're the youngest sibling, aren't you, Declan?
Yeah, but I was. Yeah, but you don't really. I mean, I never had a little brother or sister, so I wouldn't know. But I assume you wouldn't be a dick and tell him.
Nah, it was like that. Basically, like me and my older brother Paul got into a fight, and then he just revealed it to me. The same happened with me and Andrew, and then I revealed it to him.
So you didn't break that cycle. You just continued.
Yeah, we just ruined it for each other. It wasn't very nice.
How did you find out, Sophie?
I remember I asked my mum, and she just basically was like, "Well, we'll see you on Christmas Day if you don't get any presents," and then that was kind of it.
Well, that's exactly like the film.
Yeah.
She's like, "Please, can I
remember
believe?"
feeling like just being at an age where you were like, I don't really have a distinct moment though of like finding out or not. Like,
did you ever know one of those weird people, kind of like the woman in the movie, who didn't like the idea of being like, we don't lie to our children?
I mean, not as a child, no.
And or just anyone that always knew or didn't really celebrate Christmas like that?
No.
She was just a top bitch though, man. The whole film, I was like, you're just I'm not the biggest like fan into Christmas, but like, come on, allow it, man. Like, you're being so rude. Like,
I like her as well. The thing is, the first time I watched it, I was liking it. The first half of the movie, I was like, obviously I like old Dickers.
Yeah.
Susan was really cute. She's brilliant in every little movie she was in when she was a kid. All boxes ticked there. I liked the way it was heading, and I kind of like clocked straight away, like, I don't think he's actually Santa Claus, and I actually preferred that once I realised that. But I didn't really like the mum character, and I didn't really like the stepdad character. And then once it got into the second half of the movie, because usually the kind of character he starts off as, he's essentially what a love interest is to an action star in a movie. That's what I was expecting, where I thought he was going to just be there just to bob around. He's the love interest. Eventually they get together and he doesn't really contribute anything to the plot.
But he saves the day.
Well, it becomes nearly his movie in the second half, and he becomes nearly the more important character. And you understand...
Yeah, she defrosts. So that she's like really frosty at the start, and she's like... And she just, but towards the end, like, she opens her heart and lets Christmas in, and it's just, that's what the message is about, isn't it? It is, going back to what you said, it's about, like, it doesn't matter whether Santa or not is real, it's about believing in something, and that's by the end is what she does. And she gets the catalogue house in. Yeah. I'd do anything to get that house.
But yeah, there was one scene in it that even Dickers on the bench was like, she seems to be a nice lady, but she seems to be very, very uptight, and I was like,
very careful.
You're very careful about her feelings. I was like, yeah, he's got this to the point, like.
But I love it, just the whole setup of the movie where having a crazy old man, it is something you could see happening in real life. Where everyone kind of knows he's not Santa, but everyone just kind of goes along with it.
But you say that, I was kind of like viewing it with like rose-tinted glasses, and I don't mean to bring down one of your favourite films, but like the mum and the stepdad, we're going to call him, they've just met this like random old geezer in there, and they've recruited him into the department store. Have they asked for references? Next thing I know, he's babysitting the kid and no one's in the house. I'm like, right.
I feel like though,
what is going on here?
To put it into perspective, it is just a wholesome Christmas movie, and I don't think it's supposed to be as deep.
Well, to be fair though, you say that, but it is an interesting way. Part of the reasons,
and then he ends up in court.
Part of the reason I really like it as well is because it does have one foot in realism.
Yeah.
So do you know when I was younger, what's really interesting is I can remember watching it and not really ever getting... Do you ever watch a movie when you're younger and you realise you don't really understand a scene? Like the perfect example of this is when she falls pregnant in Greece, and I didn't realise that until I was about 15, even the amount of times I've watched a movie in Greece.
In Greece, literally.
I thought you meant there was a deleted scene and they went to Greece or something.
I thought you were talking about Mamma Mia.
So like, Greece the movie, when Rizzo falls pregnant, and I can remember watching it, I was like 8 and never really understanding that moment until I was older. I'd be like, oh, okay. So that courtroom scene has the same effects on me on Miracle on 34th Street. Like, I can remember watching it as a kid and, like, obviously, like, literally being 6 or 7 years old and obviously having no understanding of what a courtroom scene is. So the reason I love that movie is I feel like then once I got a little bit older and watched it must have been one Christmas I watched it and kind of actually understood what was going on towards the end of the movie. It kind of had a whole new meaning for me, and it's like a whole different story. Though who knows what I thought was happening before that. But do you know what I mean?
That's the sign of a great family film. And that's why I feel like, on a certain level, in a certain angle, family films are the hardest movies to make. Because you have to appeal to everyone in the room of every generation. And that means there has to be layers to it where you are going to get... Someone's going to get something out of it. And naturally, as a byproduct of that, you're going to get different things out of it as you get older. Because a lot of movies, even you can reach adulthood and broadly understand the concept of everything. But I know I'm going to be able to watch movies I've already seen and loved, or maybe disregarded before, say once I become a dad, and see it in a whole new light, or appreciate different angles of it.
The funny thing is normally these movies do it with humour, and normally like people talk a lot about like Disney humour and being like it's actually humour for adults. But what's really interesting about Miracle on 34th Street is it's not really humorous at all. Like there's not really like loads of one-liners or like that's normally how they attract the adults. It's just so comforting, and it's about a family, and it's about a real family almost. It's about like a single mum with a daughter. Like, it's not picture perfect, and it becomes picture perfect at the end, which is lovely.
And that's one thing I actually really appreciate about it, because I feel like family film, essentially since like you had the Pixar movies and since family animations have moved into CGI animations, I feel like it's too clear cut. Here's a joke for the parents, the rest is for the kids. Do you know what I mean? It's like too obvious where. This isn't, like you say, it's not a humorous film, but it's a film that it will make you laugh and more sort of just smile the whole way through, if you know what I mean. Rather than like, it doesn't have jokes.
To be honest, I got a film that is kind of like exactly the opposite of what you've said, Sophie, but works fantastically well. And I always like every single film. I know it's not Christmas, but hear me out. Every single film I see, I always kind of like compare to other films I've seen in similarities, and the whole Courtroom thing just brought me back to Liar Liar.
Oh yeah,
like, and that done it really well, where it was like constant humour, but it was still a really like good wholesome film as well. And I kind of like compared them two. Do you know what I mean? Liar Liar is a brilliant.
Well, it's
film.
interesting having it's kind of like nearly a cheat code having a courtroom scene in a movie, because it's this weird sort of, usually, like especially in these sort of movies, like Liar Liar and Miracle on 34th Street, like it's not actual laws going on. Like I'm pretty sure like whatever happens isn't how.
What, you can't use a dollar bill to free someone from court? Yeah. What?
But it's nearly like a cheat code for a movie, because you can just have this little scene then where a judge decides something, and that's just what's going to happen, and that's how you can wrap up the movie.
This is the reason why I'm the special guest on this specific movie, because I'm going to bring your vibe. I've never seen Liar Liar.
Oh, I've never seen Liar Liar.
I can't even comment.
Liar Liar is fantastic, man. Jim Carrey in his prime. But yeah, basically it's just a courtroom drama, which Miracle on 34th Street isn't. That's kind of like the... Would you say that it's not a... It actually does contribute a lot to it. Cause
what do you mean, the courtroom scene?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
like
the biggest thing.
It's a third to a half of the movie.
Yeah, true.
That's what the whole movie is underpinned on.
When they get the little grandson at the end as well of the courtroom.
Well, that's what I mean. Once it gets to the courtroom scene, it's so good, because he brings in the grandson straight away, who's all cute. And this is what I love about it as well, because the thing running through, another theme running through it, the whole movie is kind of like the commercialism of Christmas versus the spirit of Christmas, where the spirit of Christmas is supposed to be, and you have it in the obvious ways, like the fact that there's an evil toy shop across the road that's trying to undersell him and everything, and trying to frame the ones who actually frame Kris Kringle for the crime, and that gets him in court in the first place. But they managed to bring this back to nearly every point. Like even the final end sequence of how they managed to get him off in court is to do with a dollar bill.
Yeah. In God We Trust.
In God We Trust.
Yeah,
that was another bit I never got until I was old, when it was circled on it.
To be honest, like I know this was a remake, and the original one was in
1947 or something, wasn't it?
Do you know how many films come out? Good Christmas films come out in 1947. It was crazy. I think It Was a Wonderful Life came out. This came out.
1947.
I think I read it. Yeah, but like,
What else?
There was something else as well. I don't know what it was.
I feel like that tends to happen sometimes, though. You just, for some reason, you get a load of good action movies in a year, or you get a load of good gangster movies come out in 1 year.
Yeah.
Do you know what I love about it as well? Like, you're saying about all these good Christmas movies, and it's probably the same as Wonderful Life. Don't get me wrong, I love a movie actually about Santa Claus. And while this is so... Miracle on 34th Street is so about Santa Claus. It's so believable. It's like the same as It's a Wonderful Life. Of course, he doesn't meet the angel, but it's just so believable, and it's just set at Christmas, and it just kind of tugs on all those heartstrings, and like, that's what makes it so good, I think.
Well,
it's not actually about Santa Claus coming down your chimney and putting... Like, it's not like the Tim Allen Santa Claus, which is a fantastic movie, but that is just Santa, Santa, Santa.
Which also came out the same year and completely overshadowed this movie when it was released.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that. Not in my house, it never.
Because that was a big hit. But yeah, it's funny you said it, because last week we were talking about Home Alone, and I was making that point about how Home Alone, to me, even though it doesn't feature Santa, it's set around Christmas, but other than that, there's nothing like magical or Christmassy about it.
Christmas trees up and
But
down.
to me, it gives me that vibe of what my Christmas experience is actually like, more than most movies. Because the opening where it's just so much family is around, and you're all cramped into the same house, and you're going somewhere, or you go around someone's house, and cousins you never usually even see that much are there, and it's just all mad and chaotic, and there's food everywhere and too many mouths to feed. To me, that is the experience of Christmas.
It's even like in Miracle on 34th Street, to go back to that one, is like going to see Santa Claus in the store. Like, what kid has not done that? Do you know what I mean? It's just so... It just hits the spot of how Christmas actually is. And it also makes me want to go to Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
In the original film, Macy's was the store it all centred around.
Oh,
but for some reason, they refused to give the rights this time for the remake.
What's the store called again?
What's it called? Ollie's?
Yeah, Ollie's or something.
It's a made-up store.
Yeah, but it's basically Macy's, isn't it?
For
and it's
referenced.
It's referenced in Home Alone at some point, isn't it? When he goes Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Yeah.
It's like referenced in there as well, isn't it? Like the store is referenced.
They probably paid him loads of dough to get that. Like, what do you think?
But I think it's also like a nod to the nostalgia and like the love of the movie.
Yeah. So, going for like an alternative universe scenario for a second, who else do you think could have ever done the role of Santa in this movie? Because I was watching it and I was thinking, the first scene where Richard Attenborough's in his element, just being that like lovely old man you'd want to chat to, like if you were a little kid or just even an adult. And when he's first in the store, and he's like having the first little girl that comes up to him, and he starts saying like all the languages he has to speak to go around the world, and the stepdad lawyer guy is watching him at work, and he's just sort of like, wow, this guy's fucking amazing, like best store Santa I've ever seen, I can't believe it. And I was thinking, this is completely works, but it'd be there's certain roles where like, I don't know, even a bad actor could potentially pull off, and then there's certain roles like this where you have to be top tier, top like 1% of actors to be able to not make really creepy and gross. So, in no way do I think it could ever be played by anyone else. But if I really had to choose, I do think the first Dumbledore from Harry Potter would be good.
Do you know what?
The first one, not the second, but the first one.
Richard Harris.
Is that who that was?
Because Michael Gambon was the second one.
Yeah, and he's mean.
Do you know what? That's the first. I swear on my life, that's the first thing that came into my head. Because the first thing I thought of was old guy, grey, like beard, and like it just came up as Richard Harris.
But he's so
head.
like friendly
and British.
Yeah,
and British.
So he died just after the first one was released.
Was it the second one?
He was really, to be honest, he was really old.
Yeah, and then they brought in another one.
I think it
could. Who's great, but he just doesn't have the warmth of the first one.
He must have been good Because I'm not into Harry Potter's movies.
Michael Gambon's good, but he's not as good as Richard Harris in.
But
as Dumbledore,
if you still remember him as the better one after only making one movie,
for me personally, I think Sophie. To be honest, I think that is more nostalgia as well because it is the first film. And like, imagine how old we would have been when Harry Potter. We must have been relatively 20th anniversary.
It was the year 2000.
So we would have been. I would have been 10.
I'd have been 8.
So for me, like going to see that at 10 years old, it's just nostalgic. Like Miracle on 34th Street. Like so.
However, in saying that, I've watched those Harry Potter movies. It's probably the amount of times I've watched Miracle on 34th Street, and I still love them the best.
We're going to have to do a Harry Potter.
We'll need a few hours.
We're going to have to make you do it. Like, when me and Sophie will be going back and forward with trivia, and Declan will be like, oh, for God's sake, man. I have read the books. I might actually reread the books all over again over Christmas and compare them to the films. But going back to Miracle on 34th Street, I would say Richard Harris. It's kind of funny that he's... do you think they deliberately like picked like a proper British man to be Santa Claus?
Which role are you talking about?
I'm talking about.
So you said Santa Claus. No, I don't think British was the. I feel like they. I'm not sure what the origins of doing a remake would have been, but I have a feeling it might have been one of those cases where they had the actor before the movie. Yeah. If you know what I mean. Like they were nearly like. Yeah, because Richard Attenborough, I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure he was the lawyer character in the original one.
That rings a bell to me as well.
Yeah, and I nearly feel like it might have been his idea to... Because I think he did have like some involvement as being a producer on this one as well.
That would make sense.
Do you know what one thing I found, I was thinking about as I was watching it as well? Because I found this weird the first time I watched it where the stepdad character was a bit overly pushy into her life in certain ways, like with the child and also in proposing to her before. I'm pretty sure they even fucked. I don't think they'd even shagged. Like he said at one point,
that doesn't happen in a Christmas film.
There was one moment where he was saying, "Oh, I've got some mistletoe." Like I think.
Oh yeah, and she was like,
he was just trying to break down his barrier.
But the way he was doing
like,
it,
I don't know his name, but she was like, "Do you think I have time for this? I've got a job to do."
But the way he was doing it, it was nearly as if they hadn't kissed yet.
That is true, actually.
So then when
that is true.
So then when he came to propose to her, I was like, at that point, I wasn't like, "Oh, she's frosty again." I was like, "Fucking hell, yeah! Like, what are you doing, man? Calm down."
But remember, they don't meet in the movie; they've already met.
No, but still,
Picks them up in the middle of the relationship.
Yeah, that proposal was a bit too. It was too forward.
I was thinking, do you reckon that's an? I don't remember in the original movie, but I'm assuming that happens anyway. But do you reckon that's an artifact from the fact that it's a remake of a movie from 1947?
Maybe.
Where that would be more normal to propose. Because I remember
you go out.
My brother-in-law's granddad, they always tell the story of his granddad proposed to his nan on their first date. You know, it was more common.
I suppose maybe that was the storyline in the original movie, and there was like not much flex in that because it's a massive part of the movie. Isn't it, when
exactly.
They go towards the end, so it's not like they could have just written it out of the movie. So they've maybe done it. I suppose, like,
I think because they're doing a remake, I think they deliberately gave credit to the original film, where it's due, because apparently Alfred Greeman, the doorman in this film, played Alfred in the first film.
The little janitor.
Yeah. So I think it's something which could tally up. They purposely done.
They were obviously giving love, but I guess it's not. It's a concept, like the plot and the premise is the heart of the movie. It's not really like a high concept thing where you could remake it, but have a completely different tone and a largely different plot. So it's going to be the same this time around anyway.
So I'm interested, Sophie, to ask you a question.
Oh, go fire away. That's what I'm here for.
So, would you say this is your? Would you say
Sorry,
this
just
is?
smelt my wine with excitement.
No, it's nearly. Would you say this is your favourite Christmas film ever?
So I've got 3. I've got 3 really big favourites, but this is definitely up there.
Before you say it, can I try and guess what the other 2 are?
Yeah,
so
this are my 3 ultimates.
I know what the other one is because me and Declan had a conversation that you see it every year.
What's that one?
It's
Well, hold on. Let her say it first.
No, you guess.
No, It's a Wonderful Life.
Yep, so that's 1, and Miracle on 34th Street is 2. I don't know if you'll get the
These
third
are
one.
quite... See, that's...
The third one's a bit of a rogue choice compared to those two, that you're all very, like, kind of about love and
And I
family and
take
about
it
the
that-
feeling of Christmas.
Hold on, Phil. Give us a very subtle clue.
Yeah. Die Hard.
I'm trying to think of a clue.
It's a bit...
This movie doesn't really have Santa Claus in it.
It's not a clue. You could say this movie doesn't.
Do you
have
know
a
what... Yeah, I take
Yeah,
it
but
you
it's a
know
Christmas
what it is.
movie that doesn't really have Santa Claus in it.
Give us an actor from it.
What's her name? There's one big actor. If I give you that, I'll give you
No.
that.
Alright, just tell us the movie.
The Grinch.
Oh, The Grinch. What did I guess that?
Because it's not really about Santa Claus.
Oh, that's totally about Santa Claus.
No, it's not. It's about the Grinch.
He shows up at the end.
No, but it's not a movie like... It's not about a Santa Claus, is it? It's about the Grinch not liking Christmas. Santa Claus
Stealing
doesn't
Christmas.
really come into it until the very end.
Only because the Grinch kidnaps him and
Yeah,
goes
but
around
it's-
giving out presents.
But it's not really like... It's not really about... Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, Santa Claus or some kind of story about Santa Claus.
Saying that, was that the last good Jim Carrey movie?
Probably, yeah. I got to give big shout outs to Elf. I just love Elf.
I do.
Like, I just fucking love
I
it.
love Elf,
It's
but
just
it's not...
class.
I love it, but it's not one of my top 3.
Yeah, it's in the tier just below.
Yeah, it's top 3
I
for
just
me.
like it because it's really like funny as well. Like I'm not gonna be. I do like. I'm not gonna go into this whole debate of Die Hard's a Christmas film, not a Christmas film. I'm not really classing it as that, but I like.
Hold up, we just did a whole podcast.
Well, that's true.
about
No, I
where
am.
You went on
no,
a
sorry.
massive rant.
I am. No. Actually, I did forget about that. I am classing it as a Christmas film, but not in the kind of spirit of Miracle on 34th Street, which I think Elf is.
Yeah,
It is heartwarming.
It's about...
Do you know what I mean?
It's a family movie that you can watch. Think
Yeah.
about a Christmas film. You can watch it year after year after
Yeah.
year, and it's still kind of like... It still has the same effect. Like, okay, it might not have the same effect as... Oh my gosh, sorry. I just forgot my other... I've got 4 favourites.
Right.
Nativity.
I hadn't seen that
Yeah,
one. yet.
Nativity is.
I hadn't
Sorry.
seen that
But
one.
anyway, the whole thing about a Christmas movie, I think that makes it is you can watch it year after year after year, and you don't ever get bored of it.
Do you know what's good about that as
That's
well,
true.
though, is the fact that you have films that you would watch every year at a certain time, but there's no reason to. But a Christmas movie, and Christmas being once a year, gives you a reason and an
Yeah.
excuse, and the TV networks an excuse to put it on at that time of year. So all the lines.
There's
Like, do you
nothing-
know what's interesting when certain films get co-opted by a time of year, even though they have nothing to do with it? Like The Great Escape, and it's always
Mary
shown around
Poppins.
Christmas.
Some
Yeah,
Very
reason.
hot.
they always used to show the Italian Job
Yeah.
as well at Christmas. It's like,
That's
what's this got to do with?
That makes me sad as well when certain movies they have that mantle and then they fade away from it. Like the Italian Job, I feel like The Great Escape in a couple of years'
Yeah.
time you'll start seeing less of it.
But you
Yeah,
wouldn't
right.
really turn around in like the middle of like August. It's like 24 degrees and be like, do you know what I really fancy? Elf. do you know what I mean? Like, because it is like the snow and stuff like that in New York. So many Christmas. Has there ever been a good London Christmas film? They're always set in New York,
Let me
aren't they?
think.
They're always.
I mean, Love
set in
Actually probably has a scene in London.
Oh, it's all set in London, Love
With it,
Actually.
yeah.
the
does
whole
that
thing.
count?
And there's The Holiday, which is half of it that I was watching last night.
True.
They're both in the tier below. I don't know. Love Actually is iconic. I've never even seen it, but it's
Neither have
iconic
I.
enough where I feel like it's in that sort of top bracket.
Oh yeah, it's great. And there's also Nativity, my favourite. That's not set in London, but it's set in England.
England counts. Like you can't really putting it just to London's just unfair.
And there's something about it being in New York, though, isn't it? At Christmas time, it's sometimes like that. It's just pure escapism, isn't it?
Saying that, so is there a good LA Christmas movie? Die Hard.
Die
is
Hard.
set
That
in
one
LA.
with Chris Brown, I quite like that one.
Chris Brown.
What's that one? Chris Brown's in a movie when he's like 14. They all come home for Christmas. It's like literally, it's all in the sunshine. Oh, I can't
don't
remember what it's
know
called.
it is. But me being the Christmas Scrooge, which I've already established, that you've already established, guys. If you was to sell I've never seen Love Actually, but if you was to sell it to me, to be like, you need to watch this film, what would you say? Me not seeing it, is it good?
Yeah.
What if I just had to sell it to you?
Yeah, just be like, you need to watch this film because
It's just like, do you know what it is? It's what's his face? Who's the guy that?
Hugh Grant.
No, what's the guy that wrote?
Bill Nye.
No, who done like The Boat That Rocked and like.
Sorry,
Richard Curtis.
Yeah, it's just
yeah.
It's a Richard Curtis movie at Christmas. That's all it is. It's the same as all of his movies. Like it's got that same feel about it. It's just British and it's got British humour in it, and it's just like clever and nice and it's just Richard Curtis at Christmas time, and it's like Ant and Declan in it when they're like 14. It's great.
Is there?
Yeah, they did it.
Hold up, who do they play in it?
They play themselves in it, but there's a point in it where they're like they play
themselves.
Yeah, they do the Christmas number 1 on it, like, and they like are in it. Like it's just got an all-star cast. It's really like it's just nice.
Is there musical numbers in it? Because I remember a music video where it's like that wet.
Bill Nye, he does
Yeah.
that cover.
Feel it in my
He
fingers.
He does that. We could do a podcast about that one week. We'll
Do you know
get
what I
off track
loved
a bit.
Do you know what I loved in this movie as well was the evil drunk Santa and how he kept coming back into it.
I liked him.
He was hilarious.
I thought he was
When he's
brilliant.
like pulling his trousers
Yeah,
off,
yeah.
and you see this crap.
But you know what I was quite shocked about was when he's like provoking him into attacking him.
Yeah.
He starts like accusing him of being
Cripple.
a pedo.
No.
He starts accusing him of being a pedo.
Yeah, he's like, do you like kids? You cripple? And I was like,
Yeah, he was saying,
Rude.
is there something dark behind this? Do you like the kids?
And I was like, this is a you.
Yeah, I remember watching it today and being like, I don't remember that last time. That's a bit.
Yeah, but he had
fucking
to make him strike him with the cane, innit?
Even
But-
still.
But he didn't actually hit him.
Do you know what, another one of my favourite random little characters that came up for like 2 minutes was the army commander. Do you remember in the courtroom trial?
Yeah.
Where he's being all
Been to the
serious
North
talking
Pole.
about how
Oh.
he's flown over the North Pole and scanned the area and all that. And the Bible expert.
It's so good.
Oh no, I think my favourite line actually, which did like even pull at my stone heart when he was like, do I have to swear on the Bible? And they're like, no. And he's like, well, I'll put my hand to my heart then. I'm like, this guy, man. This
he's
guy
just so
is the
lovely.
nicest man ever.
The only bit where he lost me was when he said, of course you can't see my toy making factory or whatever it's called.
Yeah, I
It's
agree.
in-
That bit's a bit weird.
Where he goes, it's invisible. That was the only bit where
Yeah.
you are just a mental.
Because he's in it. No,
robot."
he's in the back of their car with like the dodgy people, and they're like, how do you make all the toys? And he's like, well, I got this time traveling machine. I'm like, it's a bit over the top, isn't it? Like,
Oh.
Yeah, it's a little bit. That's where he lost me.
until you said that whole extra layer of it that he isn't really Santa Claus. To be honest, I'm in Sophie's camp here. I'd never even thought of that. I just saw it on face value of this guy is Santa and they're persecuting him.
All right, so remind me. I feel like there's only 2 hints that he actually is Santa that I remember. Number 1 is after the trial's over, and also I love how he wins everyone over except for the evil toy maker guy, the guy who runs the other company.
Yeah, but his little minions when they both open the jackets to each
Yeah.
other, that is such a good moment.
I believe.
He's
But-
like, there's no Santa. He goes mad.
Yeah,
doesn't
what's
he?
everyone talking about?
Yeah.
But I love the fact that once the trial's over and the lawyer guy, the prosecutor, and he says to him, "Oh, next time, make sure have you changed that aerial yet? I ripped my trousers on it last year."
Yeah.
And he gives him a look where you can tell like he definitely has an old aerial, or maybe it got clanged up, or something that just says like, "Oh, that's true." And then the only other thing where it hints towards it for me is when they arrive at the beautiful house and he somehow knows they're going there, and he's arranged for the estate agent to show up so that they can buy it, so the little girl can get a present.
Log house.
No,
But still, he hasn't done anything magical.
That's the beauty of the movie, though, isn't it? Because everything he does is capable a real person doing with extreme organisation. So the whole point of the movie is you just never know. And if they did actually say he was definitely Santa Claus or not Santa Claus, the movie would not be as good.
True.
That's the point, isn't it?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm
it's
not going
left up to your own devices.
I agree, but I'm saying, was there any other hints that I can't remember?
I swear, Sophie, and this is why we've got you in to the hot seat, because you're the expert. I swear there was one scene where the woman or someone goes into like a room and opens a filing cabinet, and she opens it and then opens his file, and his name's Kris Kringle, and he's born in the North Pole.
Yeah,
but he had it legally. I think it was more just like that's what he put down.
Right, yeah, that's a good point as well. He could have just been like keeping up the charade. Yeah, because you're right. Yeah, no, you're right. Maybe I took that on face.
Yeah, but how do you? Well, I suppose that's the thing is always basically how do you explain this? But the point is everything is explainable. Like when he speaks, he speaks a different language to the little girl as well.
Yeah, the sign language. Yeah,
but then he speaks a different language as well, and that's. Like you could just know these languages, but it's like that's the beauty of it.
I'm not saying for certain I think it's one way or the other. I agree with you where I think it's intentionally left that.
Open to interpretation.
Probably leaning towards the fact that you even hint at it leans towards probably he is Santa. But for me, I think it's I prefer the angle that he's not actually Santa and that everyone gets behind him anyway.
Because he's trying, regardless of what he's doing, he's trying to bring good to the world.
Yeah, and that's the essence of Christmas. It's you believe, you all enjoy and believe and get together to do something that you know is just a construct you've created in your mind. It's a cultural thing, but it's not a real thing. But you all get together and enjoy it all the same because it's.
To be honest, I'm being a bit dark here. If this guy isn't really Santa, he is a bit of a psycho because he's like going around like stamping on documents. I am Kris Kringle from the North Pole.
The real life version of this story is the alcoholic who provokes him is actually the good character.
Yeah.
And he's some psycho who's trying
to
get close to Christmas.
And then basically, Sophie, in reverse, he's an absolute psycho, mentally ill, who thinks he's Santa. Somehow ends up alone with like a little girl, and then finally ends up in court.
Don't ruin it.
And gets off on a technicality.
Yeah, gets off on a
technicality. O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, and gets off on a technicality and gets released to the streets of New York, ready for Miracle on 35th Street.
I'll tell you what though, that's an absolute banger of a tune as well. They play at the end. You know the Joy to the World song they do by the gospel choir when he gets released? It's so, I'm obviously not going to sing it live on the podcast, but no, it is
I've
so.
Just sang Wet Wet Wet.
It is so good. Like that song when he gets released from like court is like, it just sums up Christmas for me. It's like the Carol of the Bells from Home Alone. That song as well. They're just like classics.
Yeah. Do you know? Speaking of Home Alone, John Hughes worked on the script for this again.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, did he write Home Alone?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Literally, that's the first thing that when I was like looking into it, he popped up and I was like, again. Literally.
He's a beast.
Man. I know. But like, yeah, I thought it was a very, very, very good film.
What was your favourite bit?
I just wish that I saw it when I was young. Like, do you know what I mean? Like now that I'm 30 and like life has worn me down, I just like was able to like pick holes.
Did you resonate with the mean old man who run the rival toys store?
No, I was basically the Santa Claus that lost his job and was drinking. The drunken one that kept following him. No, my favourite scene in it was, to be honest, I'm not gonna lie, it was 100% the sign language thing.
Yeah.
I thought that was so nice. I was like,
especially knowing the real story behind it, that she really was deaf and she didn't know he was going to.
And I guarantee you any money that there's people like that in real life that like actually work as a Santa in like malls and just generally like nice people, and like there's deaf people and they suddenly just do that. I like saw something. You never know with the internet, innit? But I saw something online where someone had tweeted, I found this guy in Walmart and basically he just had a trolley full of like teddy bears and stuff. And they were like, why have you got like just a trolley full of teddy bears? And he was like, I dress up as Santa and I go onto the children wards and just hand it out. And I was like, yes, this is Christmas. Like, so it was definitely the sign language thing for me personally. What about you?
Oh, my favourite bit of the movie. That's such a tough one.
You can't say the whole thing.
I love the bit where she's sitting watching the Thanksgiving Day parades, like go past my bedroom window.
Oh, yeah.
Like I just think that bit is so wholesome, and she's just really excited. And she, like, little Susan's like, she's trying so hard to believe, but she's just this little intelligent, like, soul who her mind's telling her one thing and her heart's telling her something else. And she's watching the Thanksgiving Day parade, and I just love that bit where she's watching it from. Also, like, goodness knows how much that apartment cost in New York to be on like Fifth Avenue watching the parade, like, from her bedroom window.
Movies before, like, the 2000s never featured a poor person.
No.
It was always like the Kevin Home or from Home Alone, or
That was Clifford the Big Red Dog, wasn't it?
Go Bastard,
yeah. I just saw it and I was like...
And all the floats, and I just think that just is such, like, a lovely moment.
Yeah, I didn't know Clifford was that old, to be fair. I don't really have a favourite scene, but I feel like my favourite moments in the movie is just every time Kris Kringle managed to turn them round to their side. Like, every character, except for the owner of the toy store, every character had a moment where they either believed in him or just warmed their heart to him to the point where they're like, I don't care if he's Santa Claus or not, I like him.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of like a weird analogy, but do you remember in the first season of The Circle?
Yeah.
Where there was a catfish called Kate, who was actually a guy that got all the way through it. And the other people, by the end, they knew she was a catfish, but they were like, but I like her, so I'm going to vote for her anyway.
Yeah.
It was the same sort of moments that a lot of the characters had in it. And my favourite personal one was always the judge.
Yeah, that's good.
Because there was something about the way they got to him over the course of it, and through his grandson, and by the end of it, he didn't even want the money, he just wanted to help out Kris Kringle, or this crazy old man that thought he was Santa Claus.
I also do love the bit where he brings his own suit, and they try to give him a suit, and he wants to bring his own Santa Claus suit and puts his own one on.
No, I do think the judge was a good guy the whole time, because remember they tried to go in and, like, give him backhanders to basically, like, not do a trial.
No, you misunderstood that scene. They did bribe him, that was the point.
Oh, and then he comes in and then says...
They come in and he specifically...
The forms are going to be signed.
No, he specifically hints that you need to bribe me and then I'll do this.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you're right. And then later on, he with the dollar and then...
But I do know what you mean, where he was the one... He was, he was a corrupt judge, but also you could see that he wasn't a bad character. You know, you could see the human side of him with his grandson in the opening scene, before you know he's the judge.
Yeah.
And how they pull at his heartstrings when they bring his grandson in to be on the dock.
And you've got to make him taller.
Yeah, he's so cute. But the judge, you can see that's the whole point in the movie the whole time. And again, of it comes back to the fact that even if he's not Santa, it makes put aside their own personal gain or money for the fact of they warm to this old man who probably isn't Santa Claus, or maybe is Santa Claus, but for most of the characters you assume they just think they want to do the right thing by this old man who thinks he's Santa Claus, and they all get caught up in the dream of it.
That judge was so unprofessional, right? There was a couple bits in it where someone said something and it just cuts to him and he's like belly laughing.
Yeah.
Just like, ha.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure no one that isn't directly, isn't a lawyer, isn't allowed to talk. People just shouting out all the time.
And then what's her little Matilda? I forgot what her name is.
Susan.
Just goes, you're a jerk! And like no one does anything about it. Like,
what is Susan doing in the courtroom?
I know.
Get out, Susan.
Yeah, it's just like... And then the judge is just like, I'll allow it. And it's like, no, you don't.
And I'm pretty sure, you're not allowed to just walk out of the back rows and approach the bench like she does in the last.
And I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to bring a reindeer into the court. Right? Just like, what is going on? But all in all, you could pick holes in it. But yeah, I think it's a very top tier Christmas film.
Yeah,
really.
it's the best. It's even just even the credits, the script of the credits is just so it's just Christmas.
What do you mean the script of the credits?
It's just the way it's written,
it's
just everything about it is just top 10. The music, the soundtrack, the actors, just the feel about it.
But what I would like to do is do a comparison of the original and see what it's like.
See, I argue the remake's better personally.
Have you seen the original?
Yeah, but I think because the remake is the one that I know and I love. That for me,
that's
while
fair.
it's a remake, it's still the first one I ever saw, so it's still always going to
Yeah.
hold that nostalgic
Yeah.
in my heart.
Yeah, you're right. But I would like to see it, though. Apparently it's very good as well.
Yeah, so the director of this went on to make 2 films I really like. Flubber, with Robin Williams.
Flubber.
Great
Wow.
fucking movie.
So,
man.
controversially though, we watched that like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, and it didn't really hit the mark.
Didn't hold up.
It didn't hold up.
I still enjoyed it, but I could see why my parents didn't
Hated
love
it.
Yeah,
when
we
they took
watched
us
it
to
because
see
we got really limited to watch it. I think it was when Disney Plus came out, wasn't it?
I was on
We-
Disney Plus.
Because it's a Disney movie, isn't it?
Watch
And we,
that.
or it was sometime around that, and we went to watch it, and it just didn't.
Maybe. Yeah, I think it was because we went through a spree of watching
Disney,
Pixar movies.
yeah, Disney movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And then we saw that just when you were shuffling down. And he also made Encino Man. You ever seen that with Brendan Fraser?
No, I haven't.
It's where,
What, Brendan Fraser as in George of the Jungle?
yeah,
As in The Mummy.
and it kind of was George of the Jungle in this similar sort of thing because it is 2 college students accidentally unfreeze a caveman. You never seen it?
Why is he always in movies like this?
I don't know.
Was
He's
he
just-
in Tarzan as well?
No, he was in George of the Jungle, which is basically Tarzan.
Yeah, you're right.
That was-
Because Tarzan was animated.
That was another movie.
I don't know where I got that from.
That was another movie I remember loving when I was a kid, and my parents hated. And then I watched it years later, and I could understand.
That's why they hate
It's
it.
just unwatchable as an adult, which is
Yeah.
funny how
Some of them are so good and some of them are
like
so
kids
bad.
can like the great ones and the terrible ones.
Yeah,
Isn't that weird?
yeah. I like Flubber, but I suppose on reflection that if I watched it when I got home today, I'd be like,
It doesn't hold up.
It's dog shit. It is dog shit.
no, I'm not going to watch it. I'm just going to keep it in my mind.
Yeah,
as it was
I'm
brilliant.
sad we
Yeah,
watched it.
And yeah, because I have so many movies like that. Like I won't even watch The Lord of the Rings as an adult because I'm afraid I'm not going to.
No,
like it
I'm
anymore.
getting that marathon's on the cards with the 20th anniversary.
Oh, I'm clocking
To
out.
be fair, either way, even if it is still good, I've watched it enough in my lifetime.
But another one of Robin Williams that I did catch the other day. What's that one where he's like old but he's young?
Big.
No,
No,
it's
no,
called,
you're
it's
talking
called
about
Jack. Yeah.
Which, by the way, was
Yeah.
directed by I couldn't believe when I found out it was directed by Francis Ford Coppola.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
The guy that made The Godfather.
Yeah.
Made that weird movie with Jack. Who am I trying to say?
Robin Williams.
Robin Williams.
Yeah. It was a decent film, though.
Who else could pull that off but Robin Williams pretending to be a child in a man's body?
No
Jennifer
one.
Aniston, I'm just
No
saying
one.
it
Yeah,
rhetorically.
yeah.
So anyway, would you recommend Miracle on 34th Street?
Me? Yeah, I would. I think.
You sounded hesitating.
I did hesitate for a bit because
You don't
I'm
have to recommend
sorry, Sophie. I don't think it's one of my favourite Christmas films, but overall, I think it is a good package of a Christmas, and it did make me feel into the spirit a little bit. And I am a bit of a Scrooge, so I'm gonna give it a thumbs up from me personally. And
All right, well, saying that, if you were a bit of a script, would you say if you were in that movie as it was playing out, would you have been a believer?
That's a good one.
would I have been a believer? I'd be like, no, this is some demented old man.
Sophie?
Oh, I'm a believer and I would recommend it 1,000,000 times over.
What do you reckon I would have been?
You?
He would be a denier. I know.
I
what
think
that-
you'd be a believer.
Yeah,
No, he wouldn't.
I would believe
No,
that
he
he's a
bloody
demented
wouldn't.
old man, but I'd be like, I love him, and
Yeah.
I'm get him off that fucking, get him back in the streets with children.
It's easy to say this hypothetically, but if this did happen in real
Look,
life,
I'm not-
I probably would.
I'm not saying I would have stood up to Hitler or I'd
Yeah,
beat
yeah.
up a bunch of robbers if they were trying to mug me, but I know for a fact I would have believed in old Kris Kringle.
Yeah. So,
All right,
Thank you and good night.
thank you and good night.
thank
Remember,
you.
every time we get a subscriber, an angel gets its wings.